Welcome to the seventh module of the Safe School project. This module is dedicated to a review of school policies and procedures related to bullying. It is therefore aimed to raise awareness on bullying, to explain the best strategies which have been adopted to contrast it, and how to implement an anti-bullying policy of success. This work is then divided in four main parts. The first part is dedicated to the European Union and the international legal and policy framework on bullying and cyberbullying. This part is necessary to realize how bullying is considered at international level and which is the role of several institutions to contrast it. A particular space will be devoted to the activities of the Council of Europe. Its activity in defending human rights is perfectly in line for what concerns the defense of minors' rights and to tackle with negative behaviors such as bullying. Another section of the lesson will be dedicated both to the main European Union directives that the Parliament has approved in issues related to bullying, both on the European standards against bullying, recalling as well the Safer Internet Day and the Daphne program. The lesson will be concluded highlighting the role of member states in promoting those recommendations through concrete actions and highlighting the main objectives of the recommendation, namely to foster European dimension of teaching, promoting an inclusive education and supporting teachers in their work. The second part of the work is focused on the approaches and models of contrast, prevention and compensation of bullying actions. This section will show how different interventions can be implemented in the contrast of bullying, starting from the actors we can involve, school community, psychologists, parents, to the aim of the intervention, namely a reactive or a proactive one. The lesson is composed by a detailed list of interventions which can be implemented in schools, considering each time the different context in which they are going to be implemented. The aim of the section is to highlight that every actor can play a significant role in an anti-bullying strategy, from the teacher to the class board to the individual intervention. The third part will focus on anti-bullying policies, good international practices. After an overview of the most relevant international definition of bullying, this part of the work will show the example of successful projects which have been implemented in contrasting bullying. A particular attention will be reserved to the Always Bullying Prevention Program, a successful project in contrasting bullying which has been a model for the implementation of several other projects. The Always program is aimed at reducing the incidence of bullying through prevention actions and achieving better peer relationship at school. The results of the program are well evident, especially for what concerns the rate of the reduction of bullying, the increase in a report of bullying, the improvement of school climate, and the sensibilization around this phenomenon. Another important part of the lesson will be focused on the phenomenon of cyberbullying. We will try to give a definition of it and to fix the essential elements a project should have in order to contrast cyberbullying. The last part of the module is devoted to all the actions that have been supported by the European Union in supporting anti-bullying strategies. We will recall the main tools that have been produced, such as the European Charter for Democratic Schools Without Violence, the European Union Agenda of the Rights of the Child, and the establishment of the European Day Against Bullying and Scholastic Violence. We will recall as well the role of the main institutions of the Union, namely the Parliament, the European Commission, and the European Data Protection Supervisor, for then conclude with an explanation of the main Council of Europe products, such as Compass, Compassito, and Living Democracy. The last part, Learning Unit D, is the more concrete part of the work, considering that we will learn how to implement an anti-bullying policy. First, we define the philosophy which is behind such policy and the reason why it is implemented. An anti-bullying policy requires several elements. First, to prepare an anti-bullying team, which means a team composed by different actors such as parents, teachers, and territorial services specialists. This team will follow a specific training course which will give them the tools, knowledge, and skills necessary to deal with bullying phenomenon and to guide the entire scholastic process. Next, the policy is composed by other elements, such as a specific analysis of the quantitative and qualitative aspects of the bullying in order to include the frequency, types, and modalities, places and moments where bullying acts took place. The course will then explain how to write an anti-bullying policy, considering all the elements, such as prevention strategies, the resources that are available, the verification system, and other relevant elements. The last part of the lesson will focus on other key elements to include for a successful anti-bullying policy, namely how those acts should be recorded and how to keep an anti-bullying policy alive. Summarizing, the content of this module is so structured. If the first learning unit is devoted to the theoretical aspects, the second and the third will show concrete examples of how these aspects are made concrete through projects and good practices, to end with a part devoted to provide concrete tools to be autonomously able to implement a successful anti-bullying policy. As we stated before, the work is composed in four main parts, related to the four lessons we are going to develop. So the first is Learning Unit A, European Union and International Legal and Policy Framework on Bullying and Cyberbullying. The second part, Learning Unit B, will focus on the approaches and models of contrast, prevention and compensation of bullying actions. Then Learning Unit C, the third part of the work, will be about the anti-bullying policies and the good international practices. And finally, Learning Unit D focus on how to implement an anti-bullying policy. At the end of each one of these learning units, a series of practical activities are proposed. These activities are necessary in order to make the theoretical content concrete through a series of activities that can be easily developed by teachers or trainers. Learning Unit A. This learning unit is the first learning unit that composes our module. On this lesson, our focus will be on the most important international legal provisions against bullying and cyberbullying, and on the most relevant projects which have been implemented in order to contrast those phenomena. The objective of the model consists in learn how the issue of bullying is addressed in the main European Union recommendations on education and training, in order to have a first understanding on how the problem is tackled. An overview on the main legal aspects of the phenomenon is fundamental to understand the actual state of the art on how bullying is considered and which are the most relevant tools to tackle with this. Through this lesson, we will be able to increase your knowledge for what concerns the legal and political framework of the European Union to combat bullying and cyberbullying, and you will know the main European Union regulations and recommendations on bullying and cyberbullying, such as the European Strategies on the Rights of the Child 2016-2021. This unit will empower a series of relevant skills. Indeed, you're going to be able to frame the problem of bullying in a European key, to enact strategies to combat bullying, to promote active citizenship and lifelong learning, and finally, to be able to identify measures to contrast and prevent bullying in line with European recommendations. Learning Unit A, European Union and International Legal and Policy Framework on Bullying and Cyberbullying. Starting from the institutional level, the European Union has identified 3 milestones in contrast bullying, which refers to the 3 different sources. Therefore, we may recall the introduction of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union in Article 24, the entry into force of the Lisbon Treaty in December 2007, which dedicates an important part to human rights, and the adoption of the communication for the European Commission, Reserve on Minors a Special Place in the European Union External Policy, which underlines the importance the European Union gives to this issue. For what concerns the legal profile, the European Union has no an additional and no specific role, so there are not specific legal and regulatory instruments adopted in this field. However, the European Union has competence to regulate areas directly or indirectly related to the rights of the child according to the European Union treaties, which allow to take measures to contrast with bullying. Considering some specific institutions, the Council of Europe is responsible for the protection and promotion of human rights. Another key reference in this field is the European Social Charter. At the Article 7, the obligation to protect minors from economic exploitation, and in Article 17, in order to take all necessary and appropriate measures to ensure that children receive the care, education, and training they need. From a general definition, bullying represents a form of psychological and physical violence. In both cases, we are dealing with violations of Article 19 of the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child, UNCRC. Indeed, Article 19 of the UNCRC states that minors have the right to be protected from all forms of physical or mental violence. The Convention is ratified by all European Union member states, which are therefore obliged to take all appropriate legislative, administrative, social and educational measures to protect the child against all forms of violence, including bullying and cyberbullying. Recalling again the Council of Europe, the following standards are relevant to the protection of children from violence in the educational setting. We may recall the Council of Europe Convention on the Protection of Children from Sexual Exploitation and Sexual Abuse, CITS number 2001, the recommendation of the Committee of Ministers of 2009 on integrated national strategies for the protection of children from violence, which promotes the development and implementation of a holistic national framework for safeguarding the rights of the child and protecting children from all forms of violence. The recommendation of the Committee of Ministers of 2010 on the Council of Europe Charter on Education for Democratic Citizenship and Human Rights Education, which promotes a culture of democracy and human rights through discussion, education, thereby contributing to the prevention of violence. The resolution 1083 of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe that underscores 5 guiding principles to promote education against violence in schools. Since 2006, the Council of Europe has adopted different cycles of strategies on children's rights. The strategies on the rights of the child for 2016 and 2021 identifies 5 priorities for member state actions: equal opportunity, participation, a life free from violence of every kind, and a child-friendly justice and children's rights in the digital environment. For the Council of Europe, children have the right to enjoy the full range of human rights safeguarded by the European Convention on Human Rights, the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child, and other international rights instruments. Therefore, several rights are defended, such as civic, political, economic, and social and cultural rights. These strategies involves all the categories of human rights and establishes the commitment of the Council of Europe and the Member States to make these rights a reality for all children. From the UNCRC, we can draw 4 general principles concerning the protection of the child. First, the principle of non-discrimination in Article 2. The rights of the child apply to all children without discrimination on any terrain. All rights must be granted without discrimination of any kind, irrespective of race, color, gender, language, religion, politics or public, national, ethnic or social opinion of the parent or of his/her parent or guardian, legal, property, disability, birth, sexual orientation, gender identity, or other status. The best interest of the child in Article 3, which states that in all actions concerning children, the child's best interest must be a primary consideration. The Council of Europe will work to make this principle operational in all the objectives of this strategy. The right to life, survival and development at Article 6, for which children have an intrinsic right to life and to protection from violence and suicide. Development should be interpreted in its broadest sense, embracing the child's physical, mental, spiritual, moral, psychological, and social development. And the right to be heard at Article 12, which means that the participation of children is one of the 5 priority areas of the strategies, but it is also a transversal objective. During the years, the European Parliament has taken several measures against bullying. We may recall the most important ones, which are Directive 2012-29 of the European Union Parliament and of the Council of 25th October 2012, establishing minimum standards on the rights, support and protection of victims of crime, Directive 2011-92 of the European Parliament and the Council of 13 December 2011 on combating the sexual abuse and sexual exploitation of children and child pornography, Directive 2016-800 of the European Parliament and the Council of the 11th of May 2016 on procedural safeguards for children who are suspected or accused persons in criminal proceedings. Regarding the protection of the child, a specific element is underscored, considering that in the case of violation of human rights, where the victim is a child, the child's best interest shall be a primary consideration and shall be assessed on an individual basis. Europe appeals to all member countries to implement a series of projects aimed at education for the use of the network through the program called Safer Internet. In particular, this decision establishes a community program to promote safer use of the Internet and other communication technologies, particularly for children, and to fight against illegal content and harmful behavior online. The Safer Internet Day was also created, strongly supported by the European Commission, which now has over more than 100 countries. The Safer Internet Day is a day entirely dedicated to all the issues that are about Internet security, as well as a meeting to promote the safe and responsible use of new media among young people. We can recall as well the Daphne program, which has financed projects useful for the fight and education against violence, including virtual violence, always for young people. Then, the European recommendation identifies the new key competencies for lifelong learning. It also indicates the importance of using formal, non-formal, and informal learning. Finally, it indicates the need for permanent and targeted training and support for teaching staff, especially in order to introduce new and innovative forms of teaching and learning, also in order to recognize excellence in teaching. Concerning the lifelong learning, 8 fundamental skills are identified, namely functional alphabetic competence, multilingual competence, mathematical competence and competence in science, technology and engineering, digital competence, personal, social competence and ability to learn, competence in matters of citizenship, entrepreneurial competence, and competence in matters of cultural awareness and expression. The most important personal skills that are considered in this field are identified by the recommendation, which accurately indicates the values of curiosity and the ability to relate to the other, understood as a person, context, culture, diversity, combined with the capacity for critical thinking and the ability to recover. The reference to the importance of knowing how to evaluate the risk connected to transformation, the ability to read context, and the need for a continuous state of self-reflection and the control of communication and of a relational phenomenon is strategic. Other important elements supported are the support to the right to quality and inclusive education, training and lifelong learning, support to development of key competencies, and facilitate the acquisition of key competencies by using good practices to support the development of the key competencies. The recommendation is built on 4 objectives. First, to promote common values at all the levels of education, to foster more inclusive education, to encourage a European dimension of teaching without prejudice to the national prerogatives in this reality, and to support teachers and teaching. The recommendation is important because it emphasizes the need to promote inclusive education as a deterrent to the emergence of a phenomenon of violence and racism that can be confused with bullying and cyberbullying in learning contexts. To develop a European dimension of teaching allows both teachers and students to work directly at the European level, encouraging the diffusion and sharing of common values such as mutual respect, cooperation, and mutuality. It is essential that in order to achieve this objective, teachers are adequately trained and prepared, including through international mobility exchange projects. The diffusion of common values and of European identity appears to be one of the essential elements within a policy of prevention and combating extremism and violent radicalization, phenomena that are occurring in many parts of Europe. For this learning unit, we have thought about 3 practical activities that teachers can implement in schools. The first one is about to watch a video concerning bullying and to discuss about it. The duration of the activity is around 1 hour and it involves the teachers and the whole class. The objectives of such activity is to start a debate together among students concerning bullying, first without the video and then after watching it. The activity is aimed to develop a series of skills and abilities, namely to raise awareness around the problem and the way it is tackled, stimulate children's imagination, develop capacity of putting himself in other people's shoes, express and be able to defend a personal opinion, and to be aware of the consequences and of the magnitude of bullying. Concretely, after a short introduction by the teacher on bullying, teacher will ask pupils if they ever heard about bullying and what they know about it. After this brief brainstorming, the following video made by the Council of Europe will be presented to pupils. After this activity, pupils will be encouraged to debate on what they have learned from it and how to discuss with the teacher the phenomenon of bullying. They will be then
Hey, give my book back. Give it back.
You want it? Why will we?
Yes.
Why should we?
Give it back.
Yeah, sure.
Give it back.
Too slow, too slow. No.
Hey dude, check this out. It's amazing. What is she doing? Look at that.
Send it to everyone.
It's all over the place.
Send it to everyone.
Hey look, there she comes.
Shame on her.
Look, it's the girl from the photos. Did you see the picture? Slut.
them on the floor.
No.
You want it? I hope that really hurt.
They're just playing, just a bit of rough and tumble. Kids will be kids. A boy wouldn't want a girl to help him.
Children have to learn to defend themselves.
Being bullied never did me any harm.
13% of 11-year-olds and 12% of 13-year-olds report being bullied at least twice a month.
Large-scale surveys around the world report 6 to 27% of children have been bullied.
78% of those replying to a Council of Europe survey said they'd encountered online hate speech, 2012.
Hey, come on. Come on. It's time to get up. Come on.
Dad? You know, Dad, I want...
Shh, not now, I'm busy.
Some kids are just born bad. Their poor parents can't do anything with them.
Both bullies and their victims are more likely to underachieve at school. Research links bullying with drug abuse, criminal convictions, and harsh physical discipline of children who are in turn more likely to become bullies.
Good morning.
Okay. Thomas?
Here.
Philip?
Here.
Amelie?
Here.
David? Is he not here?
Victims suffer problems like depression, sometimes much later in life.
William?
Bye, Marie. Have a good day at school.
Victims may be more likely to have suicidal thoughts or attempt suicide.
A 13-year-old in Bourg-Saint-Maurice in France hanged himself after being bullied at school. Another 13-year-old, an Irish girl from Donegal, was thought to be the victim of cyberbullies before her death. 6 weeks later, her 15-year-old sister committed suicide.
There's nothing you can do anyway.
There is something that can be done, and something is being done, orchestrated by the Council of Europe in Strasbourg.
What is needed is fundamental change, a new type of school culture based on human rights and democracy to banish bullying from schools for good.
The Council of Europe has many tools to show you how to do just that, like its Charter to combat violence and discrimination in schools, especially bullying.
Every year, the Council of Europe trains 1,000 teachers across Europe in human rights and citizenship education.
It also trains 5,000 youth leaders in its European youth centres in Strasbourg and Budapest and supports activities involving 15,000 young people.
So we're going to do an activity together. I'm not going to tell you now what you're going to learn. We'll discuss it later. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And you have to keep them closed till I tell you when to open them. So, close your eyes. And your task is this. You are going to form groups without speaking at all. Open your eyes, form your groups.
This lesson raises awareness of the importance of not stigmatizing children who are in a minority or seen as different.
Okay, children, very well done. You worked really well. I want us to start to talk about what we just did. Why did you make the groups you made?
When you put the stickers on, we understood that if we had to make groups, the stickers had to do. with the groups. So the stickers kind of told us which groups we had to be in.
You made an assumption, actually, that you had to group because you had a blue square or a red square or a yellow square, or Paul Xavier with just the white square. What did you understand by their reactions?
Well, I understood that I was white.
Did you also understand no one else was white?
Yeah.
And what were you thinking about that?
It's weird because everybody is in quite a big group, so...
And where did you feel you could go?
Well, by myself somewhere else.
Has anyone ever been in a real situation, not this classroom situation now, where they would like to tell us how it feels, or you think how someone would feel?
A long time ago, nobody wanted to play with me because of my color of skin. Now it's really fine, but...
Why is it now fine?
I tried to explain that how it is when you're rejected, and I found some people which are really nice to me and which don't mind my color of skin.
Because they know you, the lovely person that you are.
Yes, definitely.
What difference do lessons make? Bullying will always go on.
Hey, give me my book back. Well, then catch it. Give it back. Leave David alone. Stop being a bully. He hasn't done anything to you.
Yeah, Sophie's right.
I'm telling this to the school council on Friday.
What is she doing? Look at that.
Send it to everyone.
I'm sending it.
Oh my god. Why would they do that? That is so mean. So freaking mean. Oh. Look, here she comes. Maya, look at this. Look, they've posted these photos.
Oh no, look at what they've written underneath. Don't worry, we'll get them taken down. Our teacher warned us about this in classes today.
Hey, Maria, you check your phone?
This is pathetic. You'll be really sorry about this.
Come on, guys, let's go.
Come on.
Everything is different because the silent majority have spoken out.
They've spoken out because they know what they are supposed to do, how to do it, and why they are supposed to do it.
They believe in what they are saying and doing because they have been involved in discussions on dealing with exclusion and bullying.
Now, the bullies are the ones who are isolated, not the victims, and even the bullies might think again and change.
Beat bullying with these Council of Europe products, tools and campaigns. Democracy and human rights start with us. Democratic governance of schools. Compacito. Passport to your rights. I have rights, you have rights. The campaigns No Hate Speech Movement and Building a Europe for and with Children.
Simulate to add what they have learned from this video and if now they are more aware of this issue. The second activity we have designed is about to raise awareness of pupils for what concerns the European Union legislation. The activity, which is going to take from 1 to 2 hours, aims to teach the main legal framework of the European Union Directive and provisions concerning bullying. Teachers, children are expected to gain several skills, such as gain a basic of international and European Union legislation in this field, raise awareness of bullying and the way to tackle with this, to stimulate participation, to improve the capacity of answering to bullying and to starting to familiarize with European Union institutions and to get closer with European Union values. Concretely, the teacher will debate with students about the main provisions of the European Union in contrasting bullying. The main tool that is going to be used is the European Union Convention on the Human Rights. The teacher will point out the main articles which are connected with the issue that they are facing. And after this explanation, students will be asked on what they have learned from the lesson. Considering the complexity of the issue, of course, children are expected to express general opinion and not to go in deep in such matter. And if they think the legislation is fair, if they agree or not, if something more could be done on this field. The third activity we have designed is about to raise awareness on pupils for what concerns how the international legislations considers children and young people. The activity, which is going to take from 1 to 1 hour and a half, aims to teach how the international law can defend children's rights. Children are expected to gain several skills, such as raise awareness of children's rights, gain a basis of international legislation on the field of human rights, and to listen and to accept other children's opinion. Concretely, the teacher will debate with students about the main provisions that international law provides for young people. The main tool that is going to be used is the children's right under the European Social Charter. The teacher will point out the main issues which are connected with the problem they are facing. After this explanation phase, students will be asked on what they have learned from the lesson, if they think the legislation is fair, if they agree or not, and if something or more could be done on this field. Learning Unit B. This learning unit is the second that composes our module. Our focus will be on the approaches and models of contrast, prevention, and compensation of the phenomenon of bullying action. For this aim, the objective of the lesson is to know how to identify the most suitable approaches to the context in which bullying occurs and the elements that characterize the intervention. Through this lesson, you will be able to increase your knowledge for what concerns the types of approaches to the prevention of bullying, to know the individual approaches, to know the group approaches, and to know the whole school approaches. This unit will empower a series of relevant skills. Indeed, you are going to be able to identify strengths and weaknesses of individual, class, and the whole school approaches, to identify an applicable approach in the reference context, and to organize an intervention to prevent and combat bullying at school. First of all, we have to ask ourselves if it is possible to contrast bullying, and the answer, of course, is yes, it is. The type of intervention can involve the individual, the class group, the school community, and the local community. Furthermore, it is possible to distinguish between preventive and reactive approaches. Preventive approaches aim to prevent bullying from occurring, while reactive approaches are interventions taken to solve the problem after the bullying has occurred. Taking into account the individual level, two measures can be implemented. The first one, which is addressed to the victim, and the other one, which is addressed to the bullying. Of course, each of these interventions has pros and cons, and they are adopted after a precise evaluation of the context in which they are going to be implemented. From the range of intervention tailored to the victim, we can consider these four strategies: the individual support counseling, the psychological intervention, the helping class, where the victim is helped by teachers and other counselors to fight the bullies with the help of the present companions, and the group of mutual aid among students, in which some subjects living the same situation help each other to find new ways to fight the phenomenon. The support counseling aims to improve relationship with pupils, with parents, and with colleagues through active listening, understanding, empathy, and acceptance of the other. This makes every student protagonist of the training process. The process takes 45 minutes to be implemented, and they represent a very delicate moment of the process, because sometimes it's the first time in which students tell somebody what they really feel and make them raise awareness on itself. The intervention of the school psychologist is a tool that the school can use to develop efficiency in achieving its educational objectives, promoting the promotion of well-being in the school context. The most suitable and widespread methodology is the social-affective education, aimed at strengthening and developing personal resources and acquiring social skills. Generally, the proposed intervention in the field of school psychology can be a psychological listening desk with individual interviews for children, teachers, and families. And the listening desk is a space where different users can express their experiences in total freedom, and it is a space in which the counseling interview is proposed. That is a type of short-term psychological intervention aimed at people who do not present serious situations of psychopathology. A program of school orientation, where the goal is related to the choice of an educational path to be undertaken after the third grade, is often experience of a very complex problem. The intervention of the school psychologist involves the use of the interview and orientation test that provides the boy with a more in-depth knowledge of himself, of his own limitations and of his potential, and accompany and support the boy and the family in the decision-making process of choosing a high school. And third, a series of training courses for parents and teachers related to various pedagogical and psychological issues, such as, for example, in-depth studies regarding the psychological dynamics of pre-adolescent and adolescent, management of the educational relationship, and communication aspects. Counseling allows the victim to have someone listen to them, so not to feel alone, and then to be able to autonomously develop strategies to counter bullying. The disadvantages are that this process takes a long time, that the results are difficult to measure and to generalize, and that this process does not involve the class group nor the school. The group of mutual aid represents small group structures voluntarily aimed at mutual aid and the achievement of particular purposes. The group of mutual help diminishes the sense of loneliness and misunderstanding. Group support can increase self-confidence and involve everyone to find the best strategies to contrast the problem. The disadvantage is the little involvement of the school system in the process of change. The problem gravitates only on the person or at most on the group. The possible interventions concerning the bullying are the moral approach, which is based on ethics and moral rules to make enhance understanding and acquiring correct behavior, the legal approach, which includes rules and provisions shared by all, which provide for sanctions that can be light and severe, and the humanistic approach, which is based on the experience of self-empathy. The legal approach consists in the implementation of sanctioning and/or punitive mechanisms such as verbal warning, written warning, suspension from participation in school activities, destination for socially useful work. The advantages of this method are that it provides clear indications to the differences between acceptable and unacceptable behavior. It forces everyone to reflect on the severity of the acts, and it increases students' resilience against bullies. The disadvantage is related to the coldness of the normative and to the non-emotional aspects of the protagonist. The moral approach is characterized by the use of meditation and restorative practices. In a restorative approach, students responsible for bullying must attend a meeting with the bullied student. The student victim of bullying is invited to describe what is happening and how it has been the subject of violence, while the student responsible for bullying is invited to describe what he was thinking at the time and what he thinks now. The student responsible for bullying is then asked what should be done later, with the expectation that they will act in a regenerative way with excuses and some remedial action. In a mediation technique, the student responsible for bullying and the bullied student are both invited to attend a mediation session. Mediation has not proved to be an effective method of bullying, as bullies do not intend to mediate with the victim. It promotes a reflection on the gravity of the acts and makes aware those who committed them. In many cases, it is not very effective because the emotional aspects of the bully are not involved. The humanistic approach aims to make the bully and bystanders reflect on the consequences of their actions by developing empathy towards the bullied victim. To achieve this goal, the humanistic approach uses various techniques, including the support group method, the method of shared concern, the circle of friends method, the solution-focused method, and the circle time method. The humanistic approach highlights the sharing of responsibilities, allows one to feel the emotions and experiences of the victims, and it breaks down defensive mechanisms, and in addition, it does not judge the person, but only tries to understand the reasons that gave rise to those negative behaviors. The disadvantages are that it takes a long time. Teachers must also be adequately trained, and those who take part in the specific preparation courses. According to Rigby, parents of the bullies may be asked to come to the school to discuss how the bully's behavior can be changed. In cases of extreme bullying, community conferences are sometimes held. Victims are encouraged to express their grievance in the presence of those who had bullied them, and with their relatives, friends, or supporters.
What do Steven Spielberg, Christian Bale, Taylor Swift, and Bill Clinton all have in common? Well, besides the fact that they're all famous and successful, every one of them was bullied growing up. If you're being bullied, you're in some pretty good company. Unfortunately, bullying is a widespread problem, and it can take a toll on everything from your self-esteem to your physical health. This week, we're tackling a subject that a lot of our viewers have requested. What do you do if you're being bullied? We've got a 4-step method that'll show you how to boost your self-confidence, protect yourself from harm, and find help. You ready? Hey, the sheer number of awesome people who were bullied as kids tells us 2 things. 1, bullying is pretty common. Studies have found that nearly 1/3 of all students, some 13 million people, are bullied each year. And 2, the qualities that make us such easy targets for bullies, being seen as too nerdy or liking the wrong clothes, those are just traits that also make us interesting. Such a high premium is placed on fitting in throughout grade school and high school. It's easy to forget that from college on, your success is based on your ability to stand out, to be different from the crowd, to be unique. And this brings us to our well-cast exercise. Pause and print this worksheet. Step 1. This isn't your fault. There are a multitude of reasons why bullies do what they do, but these have little to do with you and a lot to do with the bully's personal issues. So don't start viewing yourself through your bully's eyes. You'll just see an inaccurate self-portrait. Try this self-esteem exercise on your worksheet. Write down all the great qualities that make you stand out from the crowd. Maybe you get good grades in English. Maybe you're an amazing trombone player. Whatever it is, get it down on paper. This is the person you actually are. And the next time a bully makes you feel like you're something less than this amazing collection of positive traits and talents, remember this list. Step 2, build your army. Seriously, surround yourself with people who care about you and who appreciate you for exactly who you are. You don't have to go through this experience without backup. If you're having trouble finding people, try seeking out friends who have similar interests. Look for clubs at your school or local community center. Audition for theater. Whatever it is that you're interested in. Step 3.
A bully's like a grizzly bear.
No, seriously, that's exactly how you should treat a bully if you get picked on.
Play dead.
Ignore the bully. This is perhaps the most recommended anti-bully tactic, and it should be your first resort. Sometimes all a bully wants to do is get a reaction, and if he doesn't receive it, he'll get bored and move on.
Travel in packs.
Just like you shouldn't go camping without a buddy system, try not to get caught alone with the bully. Stick close to your friends. It'll be hard for the bully to get to you if you're with your wingmen.
Get out of there!
This is your nuclear option if you find yourself alone with a bully who will not stop tormenting you. The second you feel unsafe or overwhelmed, find a way to extricate yourself from the situation. Go find your friends or go get help. Which brings us to step 4. Find someone you can talk to. Speak out. Nobody has the right to make you feel unsafe, uncomfortable, or unhappy. Find someone you can trust, a teacher, a guidance counselor, a parent, even a friend, and tell them what's going on. There's no reason for you to have to tackle this problem all by yourself. There are people out there who will drop anything to help you. If you're uncomfortable approaching someone at your school, there are other places to turn. A great resource is 1-800-4A-CHILD, also found on your worksheet. It's a toll-free number, so it won't cost any money, and there are people available to talk at any time of the day or night. Ultimately, please just don't let yourself believe that you're in this without a life jacket. Turn to your friends, your parents, or turn to this hotline.
Let's recap.
Today, we talked about bullies. People who somehow believe that they can make you feel awful. Dealing with bullies is tricky, but remember our steps. This isn't your fault, so don't let your self-esteem take a hit. Build an army of support around you and keep these friends close. When in doubt, try ignoring the bully or laughing it off, but ultimately, turn to others for help. A parent, a friend, or a resource such as 1-800-4A-CHILD. Tweet us at WatchWellcast, email us at watchwellcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below. We'll see you next time.
Of those involved in the bullying incidents in attendance. Here, the aim is to evoke in perpetrators a sense of shame about what they did, but to do so in circumstances in which they feel accepted as a person by their supporters and can be effectively reintegrated into a caring community. Class group level interventions include the curricular approach. They represent educational activities that work with historical, social, and cultural issues to highlight the problem of bullying and its causes, strengthening aspects such as self-esteem, empathy, communication skills or life skills, promotion of peer cooperation in the curricular activities. The figure of a friendly operator is created where some support the victims. A possibility of peer counseling is created by managing spaces where opportunities for listening and advice are created. Fostering the conflict between peers is encouraged. Some young people are trained to be the mediator and facilitators of the comrades in the resolution of the conflict. The interventions on the class group increase the transversal skills that are self-esteem, self-efficacy, empathy, communication skills, mediation skills, listening skills, conflict resolution skills. The disadvantages are that you must take a lot of time and specific training is required. The teacher or teachers must learn to confront themselves with the students, all of them interested in the topic, and try to involve as many of them as possible. The wide school approaches are based on the ecological approach to psychophysical health and try to create an environment that prevents bullying. It consists on a series of interventions concerning the school organization, school policies, tasks and the role of teachers, relations with family members, relations with local authorities and institutions. Usually, a good school protocol or school policy is issued that indicate which activities are carried out to prevent and counterattack bullying, what roles and responsibility the teachers and families members have. The main elements characterize this approach are a positive school culture and climate that is welcoming of difference and diversity and is based on inclusivity, encourages students to disclose and discuss incidents of bullying behavior in a non-threatening environment, and it promotes a respectful relationship across the school community. Effective leadership, a school-wide approach, a shared understanding of what bullying is and its impact, the implementation of education and preventive strategies, including awareness raising on build empathy, respect and resilience in students, and or explicitly address the issues of cyberbullying and identity-based bullying. Effective supervision and monitoring of students, support for staff, consistent recording, investigation and follow-up building behaviors, including use of established intervention strategies, ongoing evaluation of the effectiveness of the anti-bullying policy. Furthermore, the specific objectives to reduce bullying are to increase students' ability to relate, to create and recommend a good relational climate in classrooms, to sensitize adults, victims, and all those who gravitate around and combat the omnipotence of bullies, to bring out cases of bullying and prevent them from ending up in silence, to improve communication and collaboration between teachers, to make the functioning of the school transparent, to strengthen the parent-teacher relationship. Some strategies can be implemented by anyone, like listen to the pupils, watch them while they're together, to recognize aggressive behaviors, to block them, to try to understand what was happening by talking directly with the students, either individually or in groups, and then confronting adults, and to create alliances with all the figures operating in the school. An individual teacher can insert cooperative activities and subgroups into teaching planning that promote relationship and knowledge among students, and to propose intervention, identification, and contrast activities in its classes. Regarding the class board, it can share observation and inform on young people, aware that everyone has a partial vision and that all points of view together achieve a more detailed understanding. Agree clear and comprehensible rules of conduct and the related sanctions, and commit to making them respected by the class in a concordant and uniform manner. Confront each other over time to understand the evolution of the case and verify the effectiveness of the intervention. And then, a single companion can ask himself if bullying is normal and necessary. He can try to put himself in the victim's shoes and show them or him solidarity, to ask himself if arrogance is serious or repeated, and to invite the victim to speak with a teacher he trusts or do it personally, to allow the bully the freedom to behave in a different way, to try to find out who the victims are behind their appearance of role and to recognize their fears. Several practical activities are then provided at the end of this course. The first activity, which takes about 1 hour, is composed by a debate about strategies to contrast bullying. The objective is to start a debate together with students about the phenomenon of bullying and to hear what everyone thinks about those strategies. The activity is aimed to develop a series of skills and abilities, such as to understand the personal tools that anyone can use to cope with bullying, to raise awareness around the problem, to stimulate children's imagination, to listen and respect other children's opinion, to be aware of the negative consequences of bullying, and to develop a civic sense in contrast negative behaviors such as bullying. Concretely, a teacher will coordinate a debate in which he or she will ask what children can do if they are aware to a situation of bullying inside their own class. Children are so encouraged to express their opinion, such as if it's useful to solve the problem inside the class, if it's better to involve the school system, if parents should be involved in this activity, and etc. They are forced to put their mind in a concrete situation and this stimulates their imagination and their awareness. After this brainstorming, the teacher will introduce pupils to the IAN, the European Anti-Bullying Network, where they can find information about the level of bullying in their country and which are the best strategies to face this problem. Following the context, the teacher will divide children in small groups and to try to define what they now think about the best strategies to fight against bullying with the support of the aforementioned source. At the end of the activity, all the groups will tell what they have elaborated and the other one will give their opinion in accordance or not with what they have heard. The second activity is developed with the aim of a video content. The activity, which is 1 hour long, aims to debate about strategies to contrast bullying. The objective of this activity is to start a debate together with students about the phenomenon of bullying. Several skills and abilities are going to be developed by pupils, such as understand the personal tools that anyone can use to cope with bullying, to raise awareness around the problem, to stimulate young people to be aware of the negative consequences of such behaviors, and to develop a civic sense in contrast negative behaviors. The teacher will ask to pupils about the strategies to contrast bullying and if they think that someone of these works better than others. Children are so encouraged to express ideas, if they think that individual interventions are better than collective or vice versa, if they think that the school community should be involved, etc. After this activity, the following cartoon will be presented to pupils. After this activity, pupils will be encouraged to debate on what they have learned from it and how to discuss it together. They will be stimulated to add their personal opinion about the video and what they have learned from the video, and if now they are more aware about this issue. The third practical activity, it takes about 1 hour and is about to write positive nicknames on a poster. The objective is to increase the positive climate in a classroom. The skills and abilities that are going to be developed are to reinforce pupils' self-esteem, to make them aware of themselves, to listen and to respect other children's opinion, and to develop a civic sense in contrast negative behaviors. For this activity, teachers will ask students to write down a list of names that they do not wish to be called, such as nickname, street name, etc. Have them turn their sheet into you so that you're aware of their preferences. Then ask them to make a poster with the name that they prefer to be called and write down the positive attributes associated with their name. Let the pupils decorate the poster with colors and figures and display it within the classroom. The exercise helps the students feel like they are being respected by both their teachers and classmates. The activity is aimed to stimulate pupils' self-esteem and to make them more confident on themselves. The last activity, which can take from 1 to 2 hours, is about to write a list of questions for classmates. The objective of this activity is to increase the positive climate in a school. Several skills and abilities are going to be developed, like to reinforce the positive climate in the class, to minimize the risk that bullying occurs, and to develop a civic sense. One of the best ways to prevent bullying within the classroom is to help students feel more comfortable with one another. Oftentimes, bullying results when students see each other as strange or different. With this activity, we create a list of interview questions that will be provided to each student. Pair of the students in the class and ask them to interview one another. Challenge them to find one thing that they have in common with that student, and then the students should introduce their partner to the class. This helps everyone establish a personal connection within the classroom and can minimize bullying right at the start of the school year. Learning Unit C. This learning unit is the third learning unit that composes our module. This lesson is focused on the anti-bullying policies and procedures, such as good international practices which aim to tackle with bullying. This lesson will introduce a complete overview of the example of successful projects and practices from which several other projects have been inspired. For this aim, the objective of the project is to know which policies and procedures are adopted internationally to prevent and combat bullying and cyberbullying. And through this lesson, you will be able to increase your knowledge for what concerns to know the strategies of intervention against bullying identified at the European and international level, to know the good practices developed and applied at international and European level, and to know the currently active prevention and contrast programs. This unit will empower a series of relevant skills. Indeed, you're going to be able to carry out research and analysis of European and international best practices, to evaluate their transferability in other school settings, and to be able to organize a preventive and contrast intervention to bullying. According to more definitions, bullying has been identified internationally as a long-standing phenomenon, following Olweus, such as a widespread risk behavior, considering that today it is estimated that around 200 million children and young people.
Top 10 forms of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is a worldwide problem that's growing fast. In this video, we'll take you through the top 10 forms of cyberbullying so you have the knowledge to protect your children. 1. Exclusion. Exclusion can happen in several ways. Your child might be deliberately excluded from online activities, conversations, or social media tags. Children who don't have the latest technology, such as a mobile phone, are prone to exclusion. 2. Harassment. Harassment is sustained and intentional bullying, comprised of abusive or threatening messages sent to your child or to a group. This can severely affect a child's mental well-being. 3. Outing. Outing is the act of publicly humiliating a child or group through the online posting of private or embarrassing information without consent. Even reading your child's messages on their mobile phone out loud can be considered a form of outing. 4. Cyberstalking. Cyberstalking is a dangerous form of cyberbullying in which attackers harass victims through online communications like email or social media. It also refers to adults using the internet to contact and meet young people for abusive purposes. 5. Fraping. Fraping is when someone logs into your child's social media account and impersonates them, posting inappropriate content in their name. Remember, everything rude or otherwise posted online may never be fully gone, even if deleted. 6. Fake profiles. Fake profiles can be created by someone to hide their real identity with the intention of cyberbullying your child. The cyberbully may also use someone else's email or mobile phone to harass them. 7. Dissing. Dissing is sending or posting cruel information about your child online to damage their reputation or friendships. It also includes posting damaging photos, screenshots, or videos online. 8. Trickery. Trickery involves gaining your child's trust so that secrets can be shared publicly online. A cyberbully will befriend your child, leading them into a false sense of security before sending their private information to others. 9. Trolling. Trolling means deliberately provoking a response through the use of insults on online forums and social media sites. A troll will personally attack your child, aiming to make them angry and provoke a response. 10. Catfishing. Catfishing involves stealing online identities and recreating social networking profiles for deceptive purposes. Catfishers look at your child's profile and take information to create a fake persona. This could involve using personal information, potentially damaging your child's online reputation. Please share this video with other parents to help spread awareness and put a stop to cyberbullying.
People in the world are abused by comrades, by Stedman and Kandsteg. It's one of the most significant phenomena of group deviance, used as a kind of script that is a sequence stereotyped in which actors play established roles, as a public health problem that needs to be addressed. For the World Health Organization, WHO, bullying is an unwanted aggressive behavior which implies a repeated psychical, psychological, or social harm and took place in physical places such as school or virtual ones like internet. The World Health Assembly issued a resolution on the role of a global health system in response to address interpersonal violence. The World Health Organization has put in place a series of actions ranging from monitoring and collecting data on the phenomenon of bullying. Furthermore, it has developed and endorsed an evidence-based technical package called INSPIRE. INSPIRE is a package that includes actions that at various levels can prevent and combat violence against children. It is based on the analysis of the various economic, legal, social and cultural factors that can favor and support violence against children. Each letter of the word INSPIRE stands for one of the strategies.
Wow.
What are you doing? Are you serious?
Wow.
Why are you gonna be such a bully? That's not even yours.
And these strategies are implementation and enforcement of laws, norms and values change, safe environments, parental and caregiving support, income and economic strengthening, response service provisions, education and life skills. Internationally, many prevention and intervention projects against bullying at school have been experimented and implemented since the 80s. Among the most important projects, we mention Always Bullying Prevention Program, which is the most important one, which represented a model for the implementation of several other projects, the British Anti-Bullying Intervention Program, the Canadian Anti-Bullying Intervention Program, and the Flemish Anti-Bullying Intervention Program. The Always Bullying Prevention.
Hi, Wellcasters. Last week, we started talking about bullies. Those grizzly bears that seem to think that they're allowed to make you feel unsafe and uncomfortable. We showed you some ways to deal with those grizzlies, from playing dead to traveling in packs. But what if the bears could follow you, worming their way through the series of wires that now make up such a huge part of our lives? Today on Wellcast, we're taking a look at cyberbullying. In many ways, cyberbullying can be much scarier than physical bullying, and much harder to escape too. But that is okay, because your Wellcast army has returned to back you up. We're going to teach you a 4-step method for escaping the clutches of cyberbullies. Are you ready? Unsurprisingly, cyberbullying is extremely detrimental to your health. The Journal of Adolescent Health found that cyberbullying victims are more likely to become depressed than targets of traditional bullying. And cyberbullies don't really have much in the way of motives either. With bullying, there's normally an imbalance of power. But you don't need to be powerful to harass someone online. You just need the internet. According to the American Counseling Association, 40% of cyberbullies engage in online aggression just for fun. Okay, it doesn't really help to know that someone who's constantly harassing you over Facebook has no reason to do so, but you should take comfort in the fact that it does have very little to do with you and everything to do with the bully's own super weird issues. You can't fight those issues. What you can do is learn how to avoid cyberbullying when possible and extract yourself from the situation when it's too late to avoid it. It's time for our 4-step method. Pause and print this Wellcast worksheet. Step 1. Privacy is prevention. Take a second to go through any place you store data about yourself online and make sure the privacy settings are airtight. Google your name. See what comes up. Make sure your Facebook settings don't give out your email address or phone number. Step 2. When bullied, don't respond and don't retaliate. This is a ridiculously hard rule to follow because, hey, you're getting sent awful things, and the first thing you want to do is fire back. But think of it like this, though. Engaging with a bully is like pouring water on a grease fire. It seems like the obvious thing to do at the time because, holy crap, my stovetop is in flames! But water just spreads the fire, and retaliating to a cyberbully just encourages the bully because you're giving him what he wants. Step 3. Block the bully if possible. What's better than ignoring a bully? Making it impossible for him to contact you, that's what. Try one of the following methods to make it harder for your bully to reach you. If you're on a messaging system, set it up so that only contacts on your buddy list can contact you. If this doesn't work, try going invisible or blocking the individual screen names that you know to be dangerous. Screen all incoming phone calls and text messages. If necessary, temporarily suspend your social media pages. Step 4. Save the information and tell someone. First and foremost, report the bullying to the service provider because cyberbullying is outlawed on most sites and messenger services. Cyberbullying is also illegal in most states, though some bullies might think they can get away with a lot simply because nobody knows who they are. What they forget is that they're leaving a pretty significant electronic trail. Save any threatening correspondence, email, Facebook, phones, etc., and show it to somebody you trust. This could be a parent, teacher, or friend. To recap, if you're being cyberbullied, first, make sure your online presence is as private as possible. Don't retaliate, but block the bully from communicating with you as much as you can. And finally, save all information and tell someone you trust about the bullying. If you would like more advice on dealing with bullies, like why you should never listen to a bully in the first place, click back to our last bullying episode. Tweet us at WatchWellcast, email us at watchwellcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below. We'll see you next time.
Program is designed to improve peer relationship and create a positive school climate to foster learning and cooperation. The objectives of the program include reducing bullying problems among students, to prevent the development of new bullying problems, and to achieve better peer relationships at school. According to the author, it is important that some prerequisites are met to start the program, such as awareness of the objectives and involvement in their achievement. At the school level, the goal is to develop attitudes and create the conditions to mitigate the magnitude of the phenomenon by preventing the development of further problems. The intervention at school level includes the administration of a questionnaire, a day of debate on the subjects of bullying, organizing supervision during interval canteen, preparation of more equipped and adequate spaces for recreation, telephone contacts, meetings between teachers and parents, teacher study groups for the development of a good school top, meetings between parents. Concerning the class level, specific interventions are implemented, namely a clarification of the rules on bullying, organizing systematic class meetings, the use of cooperative learning methodologies, the realization of common positive activities, organizing meetings between teachers, parents, and students. At the individual level, the goal is to change the behavior of bullies and victims through in-depth interviews with victims and bullies, interviews with parents of students involved in bullying, use of imagination by teachers and parents, and help from neutral pupils. The program OBPP has been experimented in schools of all over the world, USA, England, Australia, and researches and studies have been carried out in order to evaluate its effectiveness with respect to the decrease of bullying. The data show that the results of the Bullying Always program are the reduction of bullying, the increase in reporting of bullying, the increase in the perception of students that teachers are sensitive to them of bullying, the improvement of the school climate and relationship in the school. Considering other relevant programs, the British Anti-Bullying Prevention Programme, Sheffield Projects, intends to develop a whole school policies against bullying. It includes curricular activities, intervention in bullying situation and the reorganization of playtime and lunch break times, and it uses the shared concrete method with pupils involved in bullying and involves parents in the development of a bullying school policy. The Canadian Anti-Bullying Intervention Program works at school, parental, class level, and at the individual level on bullies and victims. Use the moral approach and social support in the treatment of bullying victims. And the Flemish Anti-Bullying Intervention present activities at school level, at the class and individual level. It uses methods such as emotional help and assertiveness training for victims of bullying. For bullies, uses repair procedures. Focusing on a specific project, Project Kiva is a program for prevention and intervention on bullying at school. The term Kiva comes from Finnish language and it means against bullying. born from both the prevention of bullying and its management in cases where it is already present, Kiva wants to be a tool that schools can use to deal with the problem of abuse and bullying by students' bullies against victims. The program also aims to keep the school monitored and to verify the result it obtains thanks to its use, going beyond the concept of school year, but becoming an integral part of it. The main target is composed by students, parents, and schools. The effectiveness of the projects are that the use of specific materials, such as learning media on internet, bystanders, self-efficacy, and efforts to support the victimized peers. Although Kiva shares some elements with other existing anti-bullying programs, it has many innovative elements that differentiate it from them. First, Kiva includes a broad and encompassing array of concrete and professionally prepared materials for students, teachers, and parents. Rather than offering guiding principles to school personnel, it provides them with a whole pack of activities to be carried out with students. Second, Kiva harnesses the powerful training media provided by the internet and virtual learning environments. Third, Kiva focuses on the bystanders or witnesses of bullying, self-efficacy, and efforts to support the victimized peers among the students. Several projects have been developed during the years to deal with bullying and cyberbullying, following the positive results of the aforementioned projects. Remembering the most recent, these projects are School Safety Net, Think UK Know, ACPR, ACAP, TABI, Cyber Training, and Delete Cyberbullying. Cyberbullying prevention projects should focus on at least 5 key elements. First, understanding and talking about cyberbullying and the ways in which it differs from other forms of bullying. Young people and their parents should be aware of pupils' responsibilities in the use of the ICT and what the sanctions consequences are for misuse. Second, updating existing policies and practices. Review and update the school's anti-bullying policies and other relevant policies. For example, policies on behavior, pastoral care, and e-learning strategies. Schools should keep records of any incidents of cyberbullying. This is a disincentive project for people with disability. Third, making a report to cyberbullying easier. Schools should provide and publicize different ways of reporting cyberbullying as a student council task force, peer reporting, anonymous reporting, and provide information about contacting services providers directly. Fourth, promoting the positive use of technology and to increase the potential of personal learning by making it more flexible, creative, and accessible. Schools should promote and discuss e-safety and digital literacy. Fifth, evaluating the impact of prevention activities. The interest towards bullying began in 1987 when a seminar was organized by Roland in Norway to present the result of the projects carried out by Olweus. From that moment onward, a series of projects, policies have been implemented in order to fight against bullying and cyberbullying. Among the activities promoted by the European Union, it is important to remember in 2004 the European Chart for Democratic Schools Without Violence, which is a project that aims to promote the values of democracy and non-violence in all schools of the European Union. In 2011, the publication of the European Union Agenda of the Rights of Child, which sets the guidelines for child protection intervention at the European level. In 2012, the institution of a European Day Against Bullying and Scholastic Violence, which is aimed to condemn violence in all forms and to recalling the importance to protect child from every form of violence. In recent years, the European Union has implemented many projects to prevent and combat bullying, and, thanks to the financing of these activities, international networks have been created to fight bullying. Among the institutions, the European Data Protection Supervisor emphasized how such legislation can be effectively applied to protect people from cyberbullying. The Parliament and the European Council have scheduled a discussion in 2014 of reforms of community legislation in order to extend protection for victims of persecution via the Internet. The European Commission has promoted agreements to combat bullying with leading global social networks providers. Furthermore, the Council of Europe has developed a number of educational tools aimed at assessing professionals and children in building a safe learning environment, such as Violence Reductions in School Training Pack, Compass, a manual on human rights education with young people, and Compasito, a manual for human rights education for children. It is possible to find information and matrices related to bullying and projects carried out within the European Union in terms of bullying by referring to these networks, such as Delete Cyberbullying, Arbax against xenophobic bullying at school, and the European Anti-Bullying Network, made up of 17 organizations from different European Union member states, including Telefono Azzurro. For this learning unit, a series of practical activities are provided. The first practical activity, which will take almost 1 hour, is an activity which provides a process of learning by a video game. The objective is to raise awareness about the phenomenon of cyberbullying through a video game. The skills and abilities developed by pupils are the advantages of video games to raise awareness, learning associated with the memory, the importance to dealing with bullying, the avoiding passive observer and making observers act in favor of the victim, and to stimulate children's imagination. This activity is developed making children play with an interactive video game. The activity needs a computer area to be developed, and it is aimed from children from the age of 12 to 17 years old. The video game is a graphic adventure where the player is placed in the situation of a person who suffers harassment in the day-to-day at school. In this way, the player can experience this situation in first person, but in a safe way. It also allows you to experience firsthand some of the feelings of the victim of harassment, as well as to make players reflect on the consequences of their action. In the game, students can make decisions in dialogues that affect the story of the game and its end. After this brief brainstorming, the following cartoon will be presented to pupils. This experience is aimed to stimulate a personal opinion about the situation they are watching in the video and the responsibility they have in decision making. This activity is based on the game Conectado, which has been developed in other projects in Spain. The second activity will take almost 1 hour, and it will be a debate with students. The objective of this activity is to raise awareness about the phenomenon of bullying. Children will develop the importance of dealing with observers in bullying, to stimulate their imagination, and to develop their capacity to put themselves in other people's shoes and to be able to react. The teacher will ask to pupils about the issue of cyberbullying, if they know it and how it's possible to contrast. In this way, children are encouraged to express ideas, if they have heard about this issue, and try to define the strategies to contrast it. After this, the following video will be presented to pupils. After this video, pupils will be encouraged to debate on what they have learned from it and how to discuss it together. They will be stimulated to add their personal opinion about the video, if they can now define the differences between bullying and cyberbullying, and which is the best strategy to take with this problem. The third activity will be a frontal lesson on the issue of cyberbullying. The objective is to be able to understand the difference between bullying and cyberbullying. The skills that are going to be developed by pupils are to give them a clear explanation of different phenomena in order to not make confusion. The teacher will ask pupils about the issue of cyberbullying and bullying, and if they know them and how it is possible to contrast it. The teacher will ask them to write on a paper all the difference that children have found. In this way, children are encouraged to express their idea, and so to write down if they ever heard about these issues and how to try to define which characterizes both phenomena. After this brief brainstorming, teacher will introduce pupils to these two sources. The teacher will give time to students to confront both sources, to then ask children to give their opinion on the differences between bullying and cyberbullying. In order to make those differences more clear, a short video will be presented to students, a video which aims to explain the difference between those two problematic issues. The last activity, which takes from 1 to 2 hours long, and is about a debate with students after watching a video. The objective is to raise the awareness about how to fight cyberbullying, and the skills and abilities developed concerns the increase of self-esteem, the personality, the self-confidence, and the ability to react to difficult situations, to acquire tools to counterattack negative behavior such as bullying and cyberbullying. The teacher will ask to pupils if they were aware of the phenomenon of cyberbullying, what would they do to counter it and with which tools. After this brief brainstorming, the following video will be presented to them. After the video, the teacher will stimulate pupils to give their opinion on what they have learned from the video, if they are more aware of the problem, and what are the strategies to fight against it. Learning Unit D. The last learning unit is focused on how to implement an anti-bullying policy. For this aim, the objective of the lesson is to learn how to implement an anti-bullying policy at school. This unit is particularly important because it allows us to concretely understand how to implement a policy. The lesson is indeed focused on the steps that are necessary to follow, the many actors which are involved, and the difficulties that we can face in this process. The goal is to be able to design a suitable and useful policy, to monitor its result and progression over time, and to be able to replace it in other contexts. Specifically, through this lesson, you will be able to increase your knowledge for what concerns to learn the process of defining an anti-bullying policy, to know the appropriate terminology to write an anti-bullying policy, to know the tools to implement an anti-bullying policy. This unit will empower a series of relevant skills. Indeed, you are going to be able to write an anti-bullying policy, to participate in an anti-bullying policy definition and implementation, and to promote anti-bullying policy at school. The first thing to do is to establish that bullying is not acceptable in any form, and that all the preventive and rehabilitative measures necessary to combat it will be implemented. In concrete terms, an anti-bullying scholastic policy is based on 3 fundamental elements. An anti-bullying ethos. The first element consists of a basic choice of values, consisting in repudiating any form of aggression and lack of respect, both among students and between the latter and the adults. Second, the involvement of all school components. The second step involves the involvement of all those who live in the school community, teachers, auxiliary and administrative staff, pupils, parents, etc. All in this way, the response to bullying becomes a shared and organized position. And third, the plurality of tools. The intervention against bullying requires a multiplicity of tools, which can be used each time in a specific way according to the characteristic of the bullying episode and the subjects involved. The respect of these 3 basic options allows the exit from the continuous state of emergency in which the episodes of bullying are considered exceptional and treated in an improvised manner. The first step in the implementation of the policy is to organize an anti-bullying team, which is composed of followed by 5 or 6 teachers, 2 or 3 parents, 1 or 2 territorial services specialists, and 1 or 2 students. The functions and the responsibility of the team require a basic preparation, which allow the member to acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to deal with the bullying phenomenon and to guide the entire scholastic process. Analyzing bullying at school has some main functions. It allows to have a vision of the phenomenon as it occurs concretely in its qualitative and quantitative aspect. It provides a baseline, an initial evaluation of the problem with which to compare the effects of the various interventions that will be adopted. And finally, it acts as a powerful motivator for change for all school components, teachers, parents, and students. The level of the school awareness is the starting point for this strategy, and it can be used to identify the school at the level of any, which means that the school does not consider bullying a phenomenon to be dealt with. Therefore, it has neither an anti-bullying policy nor special preventive or educative strategies. Any episodes of aggression are dealt with at the same moment, without planning specific actions in advance. Similarly, no particular attention is paid to the representativeness of certain episodes. Bureaucratic level, where the problem of bullying is tackled in a very bureaucratic manner, like a word to be included in some official document, but without particular operational repercussion. A voluntary level, which means that the majority of teachers seriously consider the problem of bullying and undertake a series of strategies and educational paths to combat it. A great deal of energy is used, but a coherent and systematic framework of action is lacking. As a result, often implemented interventions are contradictory or short-range. And then the planned level. It is the last stage in which finally appears an anti-bullying policy designed and implemented from within the school and shared by all school members. In this way, the interventions are planned and integrated, focusing above all on the development of skills in the students rather than on the simple punitive intervention. To assess how serious the phenomenon of bullying within the school, various tools can be used: anonymous questionnaires for students, questionnaires for teachers or parents, analysis of environments, peer nomination, interviews, or official statistics. In order to make this process effective, we should be able to collect 3 types of information: the frequency of bullying episodes, the types of modality, so it is physical or verbal bullying, does it occur concealed or in the presence of other students, etc., and the placed moments, in which environments it manifests itself more frequently, at what moment, at what time. The objectives of the sensitization step are: first, to spread current knowledge about bullying, its manifestation, the types and possible causes. Second, to disprove false myths and beliefs which justify bullying. Third, to inform about the incidence of the problem at school. It is a matter of reporting the data that emerged in the previous phase. Fourth, to motivate an extended participation by teachers, students, and possibly families. Moreover, it will be appropriate to involve also local institutions and institutions in order to create a network. Fifth, to present the anti-bullying path you want to take with positive effects both for the emotional well-being and for the learning of the students. And finally, to send a signal to the bullies. In other words, this awareness-raising phase sends a clear message to aggressive subjects. We are gearing up to stop bullying. From now on, form of aggression will be not more tolerated at school. To raise awareness, it is necessary to work on the various actors of the school systems: teachers, pupils through dedicated discussion groups, etc. It will be therefore necessary to provide a discussion group of teachers, a group of discussion of parents, and a group of discussion of students. Regarding teachers, the goal is to achieve the highest possible degree of educational coherence by sharing at least the following points: a vocabulary related to bullying, some explanatory hypotheses, and some strategies for managing problem situations. On the other hand, the involvement of the students has numerous advantages, such as raise awareness on the problem, increasing in the likelihood that pupils report bullying episodes, the solution proposal is favored by the students themselves, and a series of interpersonal communication and comparison skills are exercised through reflection on what bullying is, how it manifested itself, how to pose it. There's no single way to elaborate the anti-bullying scholastic policy, nor is possible to rigidly fix the components of it. These choices must be made according to the characteristic of the single school and based on severity of the problem. It may be useful to consider three criteria. First, choices must be aimed at solving problems. Second, the accuracy of policy must be combined with the necessary flexibility which allows for any change to be made. And third, it is important that the anti-bullying scholastic policy always includes two components, a reactive and a proactive one. The proactive component includes a series of preventive educational interventions and strategies aimed at promoting a positive and cooperative climate in the school and in the classes. In this way, the probability of appearance of problematic behaviors is reduced. The reactive component, on the other hand, implies specific actions aimed at managing obvious situations of bullying. The goal, in this case, is to reduce the duration of aggressive episodes as well as their consequences. Furthermore, in the scholastic context, the definition of the rules is fundamental, since it is precisely their definition, more rigid, less rigid, more or less specific, to determine the existence of phenomena of attraction. Specifically, it is appropriate to define a few clear, motivated rules that provide for specific sanctions that can act as a deterrent to their transgression. It is important that students are aware of school rules, and for this reason it is appropriate to provide a dedicated time to share reading and explanation of school regulation. An anti-bullying policy should include at least the following points: an educational approach of the school, school rules, definition of bullying, prevention strategies, methods of detecting bullying at school, methods of responding to bullying, resources available, responsibility of school members, and verification systems. The points indicated are the minimal structure that allows you to inform and involve the entire school system in dealing with the issue of bullying. Clarifying tasks and responsibilities, defining shared procedures, allows all actors to understand how to act, how to define a common language, and feel supported by a concrete regulation. As we have seen in previous learning units, various approaches to combat and prevent moral, legal, and humanistic bullying can be used. The school should seriously reflect on what educational approach to adopt so that school politics can be consistently implemented in the school organism. In the first place, we should evaluate how the school environment, organization of spaces, presence of laboratories, common areas, canteen areas, and the didactic organization, school entry and exit times, presence of extracurricular activities can influence the realization of the educational activities. It is also important that the chosen educational approach must take into account the pedagogical tradition of the school and the environment in which it is based. It is very important that in the anti-bullying policy the methods of monitoring and reporting of acts of bullying are defined. The subjects and the supervisor areas of students must be provided, interval, lunch break, and identify the responsible figures, teachers, tutors, coaches. The methods for spontaneous reporting by students that guarantee confidentiality and accessibility must be provided and specified by the anti-bullying policy. The information collection and management system must also be carefully designed. In other words, what data should the teacher collect when an episode of bullying is reported, the people involved, the concrete behaviors implemented, the place and the frequency of the incident, Furthermore, it is important to define how to keep this information. For example, is a special card prepared? Is a computerized registration system kept? In any case, the reliability of the chosen procedures is fundamental. In other words, the data collected must not be lost, nor must it be accessible to anyone. The effectiveness of this system has a double function. On one hand, it allows us to fully understand the reported bullying episode, so as to plan the most effective educational and rehabilitative intervention. On the other hand, in the long term, it allows analysis of the trend of bullying phenomena, identifying any improvements or worsening of the situation. It is important to make an anti-bullying policy work, but it's even more important to make an anti-bullying policy alive, as it can produce concrete actions to contrast bullying over the time, and it can be used as a model for future policies to be developed. It is necessary to provide for the modalities of monitoring and verification of the implementation of the anti-bullying schooling policy using quantitative indicators such as number of complaints, number of interventions, number of dropouts, and qualitative such as interviews with teachers and parents. A fundamental aspect of these types of intervention is the ability to keep alive the interest in these activities over time. The implementation of an anti-bullying school policy is likely to become, after the initial enthusiasm, a sheet of paper to refer to in cases of necessity. To avoid this risk, it is important to involve local institutions and institutions that can contribute to the continuation of these activities, both through funding and stable collaborations. For this unit, some practical activities are provided. The first, which takes about from 1 to 2 hours, is a debate with students after watching a video. The objective is to raise awareness about how the steps to implement an anti-bullying policy are structured. The skills and abilities that pupils are going to develop are to acquire tools to counterattack negative behaviors, such as bullying, to be aware that fighting against bullying requires several resources to mobilize, and the skills of problem solving and team building. The teacher will ask to pupils if they ever thought about a way to fight against bullying and how they will act to contrast this phenomenon, which is better to involve in the strategy, students, parents, institutions. The teacher will give some time to the class to discuss about this issue. After a short brainstorming, the teacher will present the following video to the pupils. This video gives an example of how an anti-bullying policy was implemented in a school in the USA, and which are the main steps that have been completed to implement it. After this video, the teacher will stimulate pupils to give their opinion of what they have learned from the video, if they are more aware of the problem and of the strategies to fight against bullying. The second practical activity, which is...
It goes without saying, every girl and boy in any Ohio school must feel safe and supported so they can focus on learning. But according to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, nearly half of all children experience bullying at some point in school. It happens regularly to at least 10% of students. In Ohio, this means approximately 160,000 students whose days at school are unnecessarily painful. Bullying is a serious problem. It's the responsibility of every Ohio school to create a setting in schools that keeps students safe. Ohio law requires that districts and schools have a policy approved by the local school board of education for combating bullying, harassment, and intimidation. Students, families, school employees, volunteers, and community members should be involved in developing the policy. The 6 important components of a district's policy on bullying are define, respond, notify, investigate, intervene and prevent, and train. Define. Staff and students must understand clearly what bullying, which includes harassment and intimidation, is. These are actions that are unwanted, are intended to harm someone's feelings or physical safety, occur more than once or threaten to happen again, and are by a student or group of students with real or perceived power. A good anti-bullying policy addresses the three types of bullying that typically occur and is specific about the type of actions that are unacceptable during school or at school events. Verbal actions are saying or writing mean things. This includes teasing, name-calling, inappropriate sexual comments, threatening to cause harm, or making mean or rude hand gestures. Social acts involve hurting someone's reputation or relationships, such as leaving someone out on purpose, telling other children not to be friends with someone, spreading rumors about someone, embarrassing someone in public. Physical actions involve hurting a person's body or possessions, such as hitting, kicking or pinching, spitting, tripping or pushing, taking or breaking someone's things. Respond. When incidents happen, often children who are targets of bullying and children who are watching feel powerless. Through its anti-bullying policy, districts and schools direct how victims or bystanders can report an incident and protect the victim. A good policy also tells every staff member to quickly and consistently stop students who display bullying behavior. Notify. A key to preventing bullying is communicating expectations of student conduct. Districts and schools should publicize this information and the district's policy on anti-bullying, harassment, and intimidation in Student Handbook, District Publications, Employee Handbook, and district and school websites. Information should explain how staff report incidents and outcomes in these ways. 1. Accept complaints either formally in writing or informally through verbal information. This includes the names of people involved, the number of times and places of actions, and names of potential witnesses in an incident report. 2. Share the complaint with the building principal or the person assigned to bullying issues. Accept, review, and take action on an anonymous complaint if the witness requests confidentiality. 3. Make reports of incidents available to families with students involved. Provide a summary of all incidents twice a year to the local board president and to families and community on the district website. Investigate. A quick response to reports of bullying is very effective in sending the message to all students that a school does not tolerate bullying. Teachers and staff who witness or receive a formal, informal, or anonymous report of an incident must notify the principal or the person assigned for bullying incidents. Give a formal report to the principal. Submit a written incident report of witness statements for informal and anonymous complaints within 24 hours. Administrators must review and investigate complaints. When appropriate, they must notify law enforcement of alleged criminal misconduct and Child Protective Services of suspected child abuse. Administrators must take action on confirmed incidents and follow the district's Student Code of Conduct for consequences of violations. Discipline is either in or out of school suspension or expulsion. If the action does not result in discipline, then the principal or another assigned professional should counsel students. This includes addressing the actions and potential consequences of future repeated actions. Intervene and prevent. The 21st century school bully does not only rely simply on fists and a cruel tongue. The internet is now a part of the bully's arsenal. This makes bullying possible anywhere, anytime. Research studies in 10 countries show that bullying will stop only when adults in authority intervene. Therefore, it's important for administrators to collect data on bullying complaints and examine them to prevent future incidents. General interventions can include training for students in supporting and protecting the bullied boy or girl, staff modeling positive behavioral interventions and supports, administrators giving fair and consistent discipline of all students, staff supervising recess, lunch, bathroom breaks, and hallways. Staff communicating with parents, monitoring all parties involved, and checking with the student who's the target of bullying daily. And staff using positive behavior intervention supports to create a respectful school setting where every child can feel important. A specific intervention for the victim is to create a safety plan to protect a student from further incidents during the school day and in locations that have been hotspots for bullying in the past. A specific intervention for those who are bullying and their victims is to contact community-based agencies that offer mental health or behavioral health services to work with students about the cause of and/or recovery from bullying behavior. Train. A girl or boy is bullied every 7 minutes. 85% of the time, no one intervenes. Actions of teachers, administrators, and school staff can make a difference in stopping bullying. District and school administrators must lead efforts to inform all staff about the anti-bullying policy. They must be clear they will not tolerate bullying. The district is responsible for training staff when there's a new or revised policy during annual orientation sessions. All employee training materials should include the policy on bullying, harassment, and intimidation. Schools should take the lead on communicating information about policy and school rules to students and their families. Many schools are finding that the best strategy to prevent bullying, harassment, and intimidation is through programs that promote positive behavior interventions and supports. This approach promotes respect and good social behavior throughout the school. Every adult in a school can make a difference, and every school should have a policy against bullying, harassment, and intimidation. And every staff member should know that policy, enforce it fairly and consistently to all students, prevent incidents through positive behavioral interventions and supports, report incidents, protect victims, and quickly address bullying actions. Together, adults can stop bullying and keep our children safe.
Going to take around 1 hour is a frontal lesson on different types of anti-bullying policies. The objective is to raise awareness about the different anti-bullying policies which are implemented in different European countries, in the way that pupils are able to realize that there is no best way to tackle with bullying, that this phenomenon is very widespread in the European continent. They will acquire tools to counterattack negative behaviors, and they will be aware that fighting against bullying requires several resources to mobilize. So first, the teacher will ask the pupils about the phenomenon of bullying, if they know about it, how it's possible to contrast. Then, the teacher will ask pupils to write on a paper all the difference that they have found. In this way, children are so encouraged to express ideas if they have heard about this issue. The fundamental tool that teachers can use is a document by the European Commission, the European Strategy to Prevent and Tackle School Bullying, which is available at the following link. This document allows the teacher to go in deeper concerning how different policies are implemented in different countries, giving to the students the capacity to realize how the issue is differently tackled based on the context and how different anti-bullying strategies are possible. The third activity, which will take almost 2 hours of time, is a simulation of a real decision-making process concerning how to implement an anti-bullying policy. The objective is to show how a real process of decision-making works. Pupils will be able to realize that there are many different strategies to fight against bullying. They realize how it's difficult to organize such strategy. They will acquire concrete tools to taking decisions in a decision-making process. They become confident to express their opinion in their team and in public, and fundamentally they were stimulated to reflect about the problem. So first, we simulate the situation that an episode of bullying has occurred in the school. The class is then divided in small groups that are going to represent the different anti-bullying teams. Each member of such group play a different role inside the team. So there are going to be teacher, a psychology, a representative of local institution, and a specific one from territorial services. Inside each one of these groups, a different strategy to tackle with bully is defined. At the end of the first part, all group will present to the others the personal strategy they have developed to face the problem. At the end of all the presentations, each group will vote the strategy that they consider the best to contrast bullying. The strategy that is going to obtain more votes is going to be considered the most efficient by the class. We thank you for your attention, hoping that this module will be useful for your activities and for your life.